Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Jamestown Public School Board to order. It is Monday, April 15th, 2024, 5:15 p.m., and we're in the Thompson Community Room of the middle school. We'd like to recognize all those joining us tonight that are in the audience. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Diane, would you read the school board norms?
Certainly. The board developed norms are to share and respect opinions and speak with a united voice once a decision has been reached, execute all duties of the school board in compliance with North Dakota Century Code, properly prepare for meetings, commit to assessing board effectiveness, and ensure high-quality governance for all stakeholders.
Thank you, Diane. Moving on our agenda, we have nothing under public communications. Under conflicts of interest, does any board member have a conflict of interest to declare? Any conflicts of interest? Any conflicts of interest? If not, moving forward to our consent agenda. Would you like anything removed from the consent agenda? Would you like anything removed? If not, is there a motion? Motion by Dan, second by Melissa. We have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Any discussion or any questions on the consent agenda? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Moving on to our regular meeting, under A, under recognition. Dan, would you read our recognition for tonight?
Yes, I will. Tonight, the board is proud to recognize Mr. Jacob Jansen, who earned a gold team placement on the 2024 academic all-state team. So congratulations, Jacob. In the same area, we recognized last week, last meeting, Cami Veldkamp, who earned an honorable mention on the academic all-state.
Thank you, Dan. Moving on in our agenda, nothing under correspondence. Under reports, I don't know if we have a student council report. No, next, we'll have a student council report at the next meeting. Under progress monitoring, D, number 1, strategic focus area. 2, leadership for learning. Dr. Leck.
Thank you. You do have the written progress monitoring report. I will review that orally here too, and I'll pause at times for questions, or at least at the very end for questions. So with this, this progress monitoring, it's strategic focus 2, leadership for learning. The first goal that we had, and I'll read the goals and I'll talk a little bit about the metrics and then we'll move on. Goal number 1, Jamestown Public Schools will ensure a guaranteed and viable curriculum by annually reporting proficiency on priority standards in 100% of courses by 2026. So what we're looking at when we're defining this goal, the metric that we're looking at, the percentage of grade levels and courses that we're able to report proficiency data for each priority standard. So what that means, their priority standards are selected by our JPS teachers, and they align to North Dakota state standards. So each of our teachers go through a pretty rigorous process. Our teams go through a pretty rigorous process to select those priority standards. And this is the process we're using to align, and they align those North Dakota state standards. The other thing that's important to recognize about these standards is they are the guaranteed piece of that. So the viability piece is that they're tying to our North Dakota state standards. The guaranteed portion of that is it should look the same, whether you are going to first grade at Roosevelt Elementary, whether you're going to first grade at Washington Elementary. The standards, the expectations are the same. And so that's where those are the standards, the metrics that we're using for goal number 1. This is, as you'll see when we go through kind of our progress monitoring piece, don't be fooled to say, oh boy, we're not very far in this process. We are maybe in the beginning stages, but we have done a lot of capacity building around this goal, and our teachers and our administrators involved have done just a fantastic job of getting us to this point. So don't be fooled when we say 0%. A lot of work has gone in to get us to this point. So that's goal number one. Goal number two, Jamestown Public Schools will define well-rounded student outcomes for 100% of students and report and align curriculum and practices by 2027. So really the future metrics that we're looking at are defining what does well-rounded mean. What does that mean at every level? What does that mean at the elementary level? What does that mean at the middle school level? What does it mean at the high school level? And really, what are we trying to say all of our JPS graduates are going to look like? You know, and how does that align to what our community needs are and our, that we're supporting them at every level. And so that really aligns to what they call a portrait of a graduate, which is a portrait of a learner now, but that's looking at the essential skills that they have and how that aligns to what the needs of our community are, what's the expectations of our state for how do students, you know, what skills, attributes, characteristics do our students have upon leaving Jamestown High School. Goal number three, Jamestown Public Schools will annually inventory leadership and mentor opportunities for staff and provide no fewer than one improvement strategy. So this is similar to two of the goals that we had last time, in that we're creating an inventory at a baseline level now. And so we looked at the metric that we're using is the number of leadership activities used per quarter. And so we'll look at those, and I categorize them. I'll talk about that in a bit, but I categorize those, and so that'll be a baseline for us to determine, you know, where do we want to go moving forward with inventory, with leadership and mentor opportunities. Goal number four, Jamestown Public Schools will annually inventory community engagement activities to create a baseline and meet or exceed one activity per building. So the metric we used, again, creation of that district level and building level inventories to determine what are our current engagement strategies. And also, again, I categorize these, and we'll have a chance to dig deeper into those. So, I'll just pause for questions on the goals and the metrics.
Any questions from the board?
Okay.
Thank you.
So progress towards goal completion and the findings. So in goal number one, so really this, goal number one and two are a little bit more complicated, and I'll try to define those the best I can, and please ask questions. It's really level specific, you know, where we're at the elementary level, we're at the middle school level, where we're at the high school level. We have a staged process, a scaled process, excuse me, to get us to that goal of 2026. And we are just at the beginning. We are not reporting at any level. So at the elementary level, which is the furthest along in that continuum, there are our earliest planned to be identifying skills, knowledge, and achievement aligned to those standards. They're designed or organized to be the first of the three groups, but that I don't want to deceive you and say 0% means nothing's been done yet. An awful lot has been done. It's just nothing's been reported yet. So like I said earlier, a lot of work has gone in at the individual teacher level, at the grade level teams, standards-based learning team, with administrators to build capacity. And I think once we continue down this process, you're going to see a lot of results happening pretty quickly. It's just going to take some time. So like I said, when we say 0%, don't at all want you to think that very little has been done. An awful lot has been done. Priority standards and scales are 100% completed at the elementary level in 4 different areas: math, ELA, music, and PE. They have adopted and are beginning a training on the reporting platform. It's called Empower. So that'll be supporting the reporting system. So that will be ready in fall of 2024. I listed some other things, or we listed some other things that are happening already, but they are very soon to be done. and ready to implement. So the spring of 2025 is when you will see a lot of those areas completed and look to implement in fall of 2025. And that will be the ability to report on all priority standards, 100% of courses in the fall of 2025. So at the middle level, you'll see a very similar story. Again, 0% currently being reported on, but a lot of progress similar to what has happened at the elementary level. They are not using Empower, or at least have not decided to use Empower yet. Right now, the Power School platform is the reporting platform that is being looked at, but no decision has been made on the platform yet. They are just not at that stage in the process yet. They are looking to align to their ICANN statements, and they're on track to select that reporting product in the next school year, pilot some products in the next school year, but they are also on track to exceed the strategic goal of reporting on all priority standards by the fall of 2025. So they're also ahead of that standard, which brings to the high school, which in a scaled process, of course, is going to be the last to be completed. So they're also at the 0%. They have identified priority standards in 100% of the courses and proficiency scales in over 85% of their high school standards. So again, also really excellent work occurring. A lot of the vast majority of staff have already gone pretty far in their development and resource building. Some are piloting the use of standards through Power School, and they are on track for the fall of 2026 to meet our strategic goal. So all of our levels are on pace. Right now, this is quite a process, and a lot of work has gone in. So we are still very hopeful, though, that the fall of 2026 we can say that those have been implemented. So the recommendation, we're in our infancy yet for this goal. A recommendation is to continue on with these priorities, and it should be continued to be monitored, and we believe that it is the right metric and the right indicator. So goal number 2. So this, at this level, we are looking to see what are the essential skills and standards that we would like to report on. So, I think I touched on this at the outset, where, we looking at the completion of that portrait of a graduate or a portrait of a learner will be a very big piece, and we're getting to the point where we are ready to do that. But there are also elementary standards, behavioral standards, and middle school behavioral standards, some of which are pretty well defined already, that we'll have to integrate in. But we are still in our infancy yet in this goal, but I feel like goal number 1 will be moving along that continuum pretty quickly. So goal number 3, this, as I stated earlier, is still is pretty similar to the reporting for some of the goals that we had last time when we're creating a baseline in strategic goal number 1. But in this, I looked at, qualitatively, I looked at 6 primary themes that emerged: building advisories, district advisories, professional advisories, student service advisories, opportunities to share expertise and professional advancement. So across those 6, mentoring and leadership opportunities, we had 34 unique opportunities that existed. Most of the vast majority of those existed at every level. They weren't building specific. For example, we have building advisories. Well, those are they're listed as building opportunities, but I did not count within those 34. Well, Washington has a building advisory, Roosevelt has a building advisory. I just lumped that in and said building advisories. So we're saying 34 unique opportunities for leadership and mentoring. And the majority of those were available no matter what school you participated in or what school you were working in. Some activity like that in those 34 unique opportunities were available to all, but there were some that were building level specific. The highest percentage existed in district advisory. I gave you some examples like district school improvement, health insurance committee, elementary leadership team. Those are some that exist every year, and there were some that existed just in this period of time, like opportunity to participate in the Innovation Academy, for example. So I looked at the district level opportunities, and I kind of pared them down into student services. So some of those district level opportunities I coded into student services, things like MTSS, B, the SARB committee, the Student Attendance Review Board. Those are a little bit more specialized. We have a number of staff that are encouraged and given the opportunities to share their own professional knowledge, whether that's in the community or with their peers. Things like the arts program, our homeless coalition. We have a number of staff that write state standards for the Department of Public Instruction or support that work. And then we have some opportunities to share expertise like serving as a technology facilitator or in our own mentoring programs for incoming staff. And we also have professional advancement opportunities like the Teacher Leadership Academy and the Dean of Students as well. So as I looked through these, I was really very encouraged. I thought, there's a lot. There's really a lot of different opportunities that exist. I will say that the bulk of them are in district level, and there might be opportunities to grow and enhance other areas. One of the things that I thought might be an opportunity to improve in this came from a conversation with the Communications Committee, felt like, and I think I referenced this in the past, but further defining maybe in the form of a charter, what is the role of a certain committee? Maybe the ambiguity of what happens at the District School Improvement Committee. What is my time commitment? What is my level of decision-making authority in that committee? Maybe that's discourages some from putting their name in for those particular committees because they don't know what they're getting themselves into. And they're just not sure what the purpose of that one of these committees may be. And like I said, how long are they committing to? Is this a year? Is this a 6-week look? Is this a 2-year commitment? What is it? And so if we could further define those charters, for lack of a better term, we might be able to encourage more staff to participate. And then I think we need to analyze, I know this has been brought forward by board members in the past, maybe looking at our membership to see how representative are we in those committees. Are we asking the same people, or are the same people committing to participation in those committees and we're leaving others off? Or is there more that we need to do there? And there's some other long-term goals that I could think of, so maybe not for next year, but in the future, looking at the Dean of Students. Is that an opportunity that we want to continue? I think we can enhance expand on the Teacher Leadership Academy. That model works really well for those seeking a graduate program. Is there an offshoot of that, though, that could target those people that maybe aren't looking for a graduate degree, but just want a little bit of engagement in the process, the school improvement process? And is there a way that we can expand on that model, which has proven to be very effective for more than just the achievement of a graduate degree, to help people have a little more agency and involvement in decision making? So in Goal 4, looked at qualitative analysis of community engagement activities. I was also very impressed by these once we started to analyze, and you see the number of activities that our staff are involved in was extremely encouraging to me. But across those 42 unique activities, 6 primary themes emerged: community business partnerships, student engagements in the community, school participation in community events, community engagement inside schools. So are we bringing our community inside the school? Meeting our community needs, and the promotion of our school. So again, 42 unique activities. I've listed a number of different examples there that we participate in. And as I looked at those, really 2 long-term goals for consideration, I felt like both Goal 3 and Goal 4 should continue. But I do believe there's an opportunity for us to create a communications plan for how can we better promote our district, promote the profession of education. And maybe a longer-term vision is something that Mr. Gaylor and I have talked a lot about. The JV-CTC, so the CTE model, does a wonderful job of bringing in the community to specific programs. Maybe a long-term vision that we should be thinking about and considering is, do we want to do that at every level? Is there an opportunity to bring in our community at every level? Instead of having a auto tech advisory, for example, maybe you have an elementary advisory. Maybe that even drills into primary advisory or grade 2 advisory, a business advisory or social studies advisory at the high school level or something like that. And this isn't a fleshed out idea, but the real idea at the core is, do we need to bring our community in more to connect to the work that we're doing, that our teachers are doing every day, and assure alignment between community wants and desires and our practices. And I think if you would ask CTC instructors, they feel like that advisory is one of the more important things that they have, because it feeds them with a lot of knowledge and perspective. And so again, something that maybe is just important for us to think about, not something that we need to implement tomorrow, but I think something that has a long-term positive implications for our district. And then the targeted steps I've included, or we've included at every goal, just some of the things that we have yet to complete or can complete throughout the course of the next few months. So with that, I would stand for questions.
Any questions from the board? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Luck, for sharing that. I know it was just an idea you kind of had here, but I think that there's ways that we can get more ways that we can get our community involved in an organized way that makes sense. And I think I would be very interested in learning about what other schools do and different opportunities that we could make that happen. So thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Moving on in our agenda then, we have our board education, educational competency, veterans preferences, Stacy Jansgard. Thank you, Stacy. And Stacy, maybe just introduce yourself just for the public's information and your role here at the district. So thank you.
So I'm Stacy Jampgard. I'm the HR generalist and community relations coordinator for Jamestown Public Schools. And I put together a little presentation on veterans preference so that we can learn a little bit about what this means for the school district. So veterans preference is something that public agencies are required to offer for any applicants applying for permanent positions within their district or within their agency. So basically, it's just going to give them an edge up in that initial process of going through applications before you get to the interview stage. It will apply to all of those that have active duty service and honorable service or honorable discharge from the National Guard or Reserves, but they still must meet the minimum qualifications for a position in order to move on to the next level. If you have an internal applicant who is a veteran, they cannot claim veterans preference if they're applying for another position within the district. For eligibility requirements, they must provide that their DD-214 or certification from a command unit that they are expected to be discharged if they don't have that DD-214 yet. And then they also, if they're disabled, they have to include a letter that's less than 1 year old from the Veterans Office indicating their disability status. Spouses of deceased or disabled veterans can also claim veterans preference. And if they want to do that, then they have to provide the same documentation that a veteran would have to provide, plus they have to provide their marriage certificate to prove that they are married to the veteran. And then for Jamestown Public School District's responsibility, we need to, when we're posting a job, either in our job posting or in our application, we need to have instructions on how to claim veterans preference, which currently it's in our application. There's a box that they can check if they would like to claim that, and then when we're reviewing applications, we need to make sure that we're checking for that. And then when we're posting a position, we must designate a number of eligible candidates that will be considered for the position. So we need to, when we're posting a position, we need to say, okay, we're going to have the top 5 candidates move on to the next stage or to the interviewing process. When reviewing the applications, the administrators or managers are responsible for looking to make sure that each candidate has the minimum qualifications, and they need to make sure that they're checking for that to see if that box has been checked. And then at that point, when they're going through those applicants, we need to work on creating rubrics for each position. I have an example on the next slide, but we need a rubric so that they can score each applicant, and then at the end of all the scoring of applicants, you go back through, and if they're a veteran, they get 5 extra points, and if they're a disabled veteran, they get 10 extra points. And then at the end of scoring all the applicants, you'll go through, and the top applicants will move on to the interviewing process. If the applicant claiming veterans preference is not selected for interviewing, they must be informed by certified mail. And then this is an example of a rubric that we put together when we were doing interviews for the CTC director. Ideally, we would have one of these for teachers and then admins and probably support staff and coaches, and they would be separate since there's different things that they would have to meet for that. Like the first 3 things with the X's, those you can't have your minimum qualifications count towards points on your rubrics. So those, we just have those so that we can track them, but they can't count towards your 100 points. And then after you go through the process, if you hire a veteran, then great, that's awesome. If not, then we have to follow different rules for informing them that they were not chosen. And we have to do this by certified mail, and it should include the reason or reasons that they were not selected. I have put together an example letter, and then I feel like ideally we would have several different templates that we could use based on which selection or which process in the selection or which step in the selection process they didn't make it to. So if they didn't meet the qualifications, we would have a letter. If they weren't chosen from the interviews, we would have a letter. This one here is based on whether they made it to the interviews but were not selected from that process. So we want to be specific in the letter. So like here we were saying that we had 3 interviewers and there was 3 candidates, and you were not the selected candidate from those interviewees. Any questions?
Thank you, Stacy. Any questions from the board? Any questions? Dr. Leck, would you like to?
Not a question, just a comment. Just want to thank Stacy for putting this together. I want to recognize Stacy and her work, to the board, bringing, and actually the wisdom of the board to bring an HR generalist on board. I think we've really seen a refining of procedures and process. This is a pretty good example. These are things we did before, we just didn't do them as well as we're able to do them now with somebody devoted to that, and Stacy's done a wonderful job, and we appreciate her and her work very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Stacy, for all the work you've been doing for our district. It's been noticed, so thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Any other questions? Okay. If not, moving on, under superintendent's report is under F. Dr. Leck?
Sure, you have my written report there. We do have the personal recommendations that will be coming later in the progress monitoring with another feedback link there. So if you have some feedback for me on that progress monitoring, we do want to make sure that that is representative of what your needs are as a board and what the community needs are to progress monitoring. I wanted to bring your attention to a taxable valuation update. So as we were looking through a couple of different, looking at a couple of different options, for facility needs, looking at taxable value was a piece of that and funding models. One of the things that came to our attention, the board is aware of this, but perhaps the public is less so. But we have to have our certificate of levy completed by October 10th. After October 10th, the taxable value, which we base that certificate of levy on, isn't finalized until later on down the road. So sometimes there are changes that occur. So we approve a certificate of levy based on a taxable value that changes or that may change. One of the things that we saw in this cycle was a pretty significant difference. That difference is mostly represented by homestead and veterans tax credit. But I just wanted to make you aware that when you saw the certificate of levy as a board, it had a number of around 90 million. After those pretty significant amounts for homestead and veterans tax credits, mostly represented in residential then, that was about 3.2 million or almost 3.3 million. So you see a pretty significant decrease from that 90 million to almost 87 million in taxable value. So as you look at this, I'm sharing this simply for board awareness, but as you look through our budget expectations as we get towards the end of the year, you'll notice a fairly significant difference in the revenue that's brought in by about almost $3,300 per mill. So it is a big difference, but the reason for that is the representation of the homestead and veterans tax credits. So I'm going to pause if there's any questions about that before we move on.
Any questions from the board? Okay.
In the past, we talked about two pay periods per month. As we looked through, and the business office has done a great job looking at, how this could be implemented. And as I told you before, we're already doing something with those in the first month, where we're splitting those up in this year just for that first month, to kind of bridge the gap, so those that aren't getting 6 weeks without additional or without their first paycheck, which could what we found to be an employment disincentive. So we're already addressing that in the first month, but we did think about, is this something we should be looking at in the long term for everybody? Should everybody have access to 2 pay periods per month, and would that be easier? We surveyed staff, mostly in favor of that, but not everybody was in favor. There was some concerns about automatic withdrawals, and we've set our bills to be a certain way. We do think there's workarounds for those things just on an individual basis and an individual budget basis. But one of the bigger hangups that we discovered was, if you look at the negotiated agreement, Section 4, under contract provisions at Section D, it states explicitly that pay periods will be on the 20th of every month. So the negotiated agreement governs some of our staff, not all. But for teachers and those that are governed by the negotiated agreement, non-teaching professionals, we would maintain the 20th because that's what it says in our negotiated agreement, and there isn't ambiguity to negotiated agreements. Those contracts live in black and white. So there isn't anything for those staff that we could do, but I'm really happy to say that the business office is looking already to operate 2 different pay schedules, the 20th for those governed by the negotiated agreement, and the 5th and the 20th for those that are not. So our support staff, our hourly people in particular, will have access, even though it's more work for our business office. They are willing to do those 2 pay periods a month because they know that is better for our non-contracted or our hourly staff. So moving forward in July of 2024, we'll start having those 2 separate schedules. So the 20th for some, the 5th and the 20th for others, those that are hourly. Questions on that?
I just want to say that I really appreciate the business office doing this. Having been in a position where I couldn't make it 6 weeks without a paycheck, that is just such an advantage for them, and I think it will help attract new workers, and I'm really appreciative. Thank you.
So as it relates to the CTE discussions, I have nothing to report now, but we have been in some conversations with other school districts about the potential to expand the JVCTC or to expand to other districts with our CTE program. Like I said, if that comes to fruition, that would be something that would have to come before the board and have discussion and action on. But I did want you to make did want to make the board aware that we are in discussions and that there's potential to expand. This is a pretty important consideration right now. As the funding model in CTE changes, CTE centers are going to be incentivized by size, and so it does make more sense to be larger just in the new funding model. So that's something to consider. One thing that I do want the board to kind of lay the foundation for a discussion that would need to come forward if we did expand. Right now, the governance structure, as the board is aware, is this board is the board for JVCTC. The larger this group gets, the larger the JVCTC or our consortium would get, that's a fairly antiquated governance structure anyway. And I think you may want to, we may need to consider the fact that we might want to be structured like other CTE boards in which a board member or a proxy, like the superintendent for special ed consortiums, represent the district on a board of more districts. So that's something to think about. I do believe that that would be an inhibiting factor to expand if there was a consideration of no direct line to decision making for the consortium. So like I said, the model that we have worked when it was implemented. I think if we expand, it is a pretty antiquated model that I don't believe exists anywhere else in state CTE or really the majority of consortium models. Governance is not funneled under one district that has decision-making authority. And so that is, again, as nothing pending right now, but I just want you to be aware that that is something that I would be discussing with the board if we do choose to expand. One area that I'm adding to my report is the student spotlight. I'm thinking of these as opportunities to talk about what our students, what our teachers are doing that maybe isn't part of the board recognition, but I still want to bring to your attention the really pretty amazing things that happen in our classrooms, whether they be by teachers, whether they be by students. So I'm going to calling it a spotlight. The JHS robotics team is hosting a demonstration on Friday, April 26th at 7 p.m. at Jamestown High School for the community, and they also wanted to provide a special invite to the board if you'd like to come. In the past, we've done board education where they brought their robot in, and for those that were here, a little problematic when they're bringing that here for the first time and setups, and it was quite a commitment. So this was something that they would like to do to give some awareness to the community, but specifically to the board. And the Jamestown Middle School bands, 7th and 8th grade bands, performed at the Big Muddy Band Festival. The 7th grade band received a lot of different awards: Gold Award for Outstanding Performance, Outstanding Clarinet Section, Outstanding Clarinet, I think I put that twice, there's supposed to be a different Outstanding Percussion, Soloist Award, and the 8th grade band also did well, Gold Award for Outstanding Performance, and Outstanding Percussion Section Award, and I have all of those listed that you can read as well. But with that, I would stand for questions.
Any questions from the board? Jason?
The CTE regional partners, are you referring to, and maybe both, but are you referring to current existing CTE programs that would be under our same umbrella, or are you referring to partner schools who would come to Jamestown's facility?
We're still talking about that's a great question, but we're still talking about what that may look like. I think there is there's a limitation geographically to have more schools coming to us, but if there's opportunities to grow maybe a satellite program in another area that could be part of us, we govern, we provide the leadership and the financial management, program applications, all of that kind of management, but they might be a satellite program to that. So I'm talking mainly about expanding that way, because I don't think geographically we could ask a lot more districts to travel further than what they're traveling now. Plus, we would have conversations about, are there opportunities to share more resources, and maybe some of that curriculum occurs online that we don't have opportunities for now. But the model has changed pretty significantly for us right now.
Any other questions? Diane?
Love, love, love the student spotlight. What a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Anything else from the board? Questions? Okay. If not, moving on our agenda, G, nothing under old business. H, nothing under 1 through 3 activity for new business. 1 through 3 activities, buildings and grounds, curriculum assessment and instruction. Number 4, finance. A, approval of the 2024 summer projects. Is there a motion? Motion by Jamie, second by Dan. We have a motion, a second for approval of the 2024 summer projects. Any discussion? Any discussion? You can go ahead and just do a quick,
So I'll be
so we know what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
I'll be very brief. About $1.3 million in total activities or expenditures being recommended. These were reviewed by the Facilities Committee and brought forward with the recommendation to approve. But the $1.3 million, it is important to remember that that includes the roofing that was targeted in 2023 summer projects that was delayed until this summer. So $1.3 million includes that $581,000 from last year's projects rolled over into this summer. So that leaves $728,000 about at $728,324 for summer projects. That includes $297,000 in building repairs, $81,000 in sites. In the site schedule, $631,000 in roofs, $225,000 in safety and security, and then $75,000 in equipment.
Thank you for sharing that. So we have a motion, a second for approval of the 2024 summer projects. Any other questions or discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. And I'd like to thank not only the people in the school district, but also the board members that serve on facilities. A lot goes into creating this, and I appreciate your work. Under B, approval of the 2024 to 2025 fee schedule. Is there a motion? Motion by Gail. Is there a second? Second by Dan. We have a motion, a second for approval of the 2024 to 2025 fee schedule. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. C and D, general fund balance and monthly financial reports are there for your information. Any questions from Christy on those at this time? Okay. Under personnel, A, approval to post English learner specialist position. Is there a motion? Motion by Gail. Is there a second? Second by Jamie. We have a motion, a second for approval to post English learner specialist position. Any discussion? Did you, Dr. Leck, you maybe provide a little context for this?
So you do have Board Memo 104 that outlines the rationale for the position. A few things to clarify. This is a shift of existing FTE. We would not be recommending a new FTE, just a shift from an existing FTE. That's the first important point. And I know the board is aware of this, but I want to continue to reinforce with our English learner needs. 10 years ago, we had a range of about 16 to 18 English learners. And what's important to recognize about our English learners is they are categorized in level 1 to level 5. Level 1 is the most significant need. Level 5 is the least significant need. Still support needed, but it is at the lower end of time commitment. So when I first came here, we had 16 to 18, depending on the month. It ranged, but somewhere in that 16 to 18, and they were pretty consistently in the level 3 to level 5 range. So we were a little bit out of a skeleton crew at a half FTE at that time, but it was manageable. Right now, we have 2 FTE with 63 EL students, but the important recognition here is that the majority of them are level 1 to 3. So a higher level of need and a commitment of service minutes devoted to that. I've made this comment before at the board level. We're really understaffed now, even though you're looking at the math and saying, it seems like we're kind of close to what we had before. the level of need for students is different. Even with the escalating numbers, the level of need has escalated too. If you look at our elementary schedule right now, we're about 17 hours short if we wanted to provide the service to the recommended service minutes. We are about 17 hours a week short, and that gets us to about that half-time English learner position. If you look at elementary schedules and common planning time, one of the areas that I'm going to be talking about in a couple meetings from now in the progress monitoring is in resource management. So strategic focus 5, resource management and planning. You have targeted a goal 4, that looks for us to explore equity of educational delivery models and schedules. We have talked in the past about, we know that there are differences between levels. We want to be careful not to compare the elementary level to the middle school to the high school, and there's lots of different dynamics and components that go in that make comparing from one position to another problematic. But in the levels, there is also, within those levels, there are some concerns that we have targeted in the past and have been points of discussion at this board in negotiations and other areas. And there is a much more limiting instructional prep at the elementary level. Some of that's schedule, some of that is the situation and context, but there are scheduling constraints that exist at the elementary level to provide common prep time beyond the minimum of instructional prep time. So a lot of that, just for those unfamiliar with schedules, has to do with just the constraints of the schedule. At other levels, those times for instructional prep are scheduled within the day. 5th period is my prep. 6th period is my common planning time, or whatever the case is, or our teaming time. At the elementary level, that's closer to when is my counseling time. I have prep when I have counseling. I have prep during music. I have prep during PE time. And so the opportunity to schedule collaborative time is really pretty limited to schedules for our elementary teachers. And getting beyond what the minimum requirements are also pretty challenging because of the schedule. So providing that to the same degree and at regular intervals has been pretty challenging for us. And so what this position would do, and again, it's repurposed, it's a current FTE that's in the budget that would shift to elementary, would combine our needs in EL with our opportunity in scheduling to enhance a specialist position, music or physical education. And that would give us more freedom within the schedule to provide more collaboration time and more instructional prep time. So the schedule that was created, and I have to give all the credit to the administrators, the elementary administrators, Mr. Kaler, that looked at schedules and really hashed out a lot of different options. I stopped in at one period of time, and there's a lot of color-coded spreadsheets at one time, and a lot of discussion around how can we do this in a way that makes sense. And that remaining 0.5 FTE would provide quite a bit of schedule flexibility, they determined, would provide a little bit more prep time, another 10 minutes per day for prep time. And as many as 3 of those hours would be able to be scheduled in a way that provides common prep time with their grade level peers or with collaboration partners for our single section buildings. So like I said, there would be no budgetary impact from this year to next if you compare from this year to next year, because that's we have a current unfilled positions that would be shifted here, but it would have a pretty significant instructional and collaboration prep impact for our elementary teachers, who we have targeted already as being a little bit lower than their comparative peers at the middle level and at the high school for instructional prep time and collaboration time. So with that, I would stand for questions.
Any other discussion? So we have a motion and a second for approval to post the English learner specialist position. Discussion. Aaron.
Yeah, just with the sheer numbers that we're looking at here, like you said, 10 years ago, going from 16 up to 63 now, to me, it raises the question, is our current distributed model the correct model for our current environment, or do we need to maybe look at a different way of presenting this to the EL students and taking maybe a little bit more, not necessarily aggressive, but a different approach to it?
I agree with that. I think that we do need to look. One of the problems that's arisen is our lack of ability to find long-term EL instructors. We feel like we've been swimming or treading water a little bit instead of really an ability to study the situation. I think there are opportunities if we become properly staffed that we would have to expand some programming and provide better services to all students. But absolutely a fair question, but I think it does start at adequately staffing the level.
Yeah, I guess I was getting at, recognizing our limitations on the staffing or constraints on the staffing to find a presentation model to get the kids immersed in it, as opposed to just distributing it over the course of the day when they can fit in with other schedules and all the other things. Is it more of a focused approach versus a distributed approach?
Sure, I think there's fairness to that, and I do believe that we need to, one of the things we've seen in EL is right now we are still operating in the model that serves 17 kids, and we need to shift the model a little bit more. I do think with appropriate staffing and long-term staffing committed to those positions in the long term, so it's not one person trying to manage all of that by herself or leading that by one person. I think we'll have an opportunity to study that in greater detail.
Gail.
I would think moving towards more support is long overdue. Just hearing it in my own daughter who is an EL educator. Are we limited in a sense? A lot of bigger districts have the opportunity to have newcomers in a whole newcomer program, but we are not necessarily a big enough district to do that, which will always give us some inherent limitations in how we can serve those level 1s and 2s. Are we, if you know what I mean by that, there are programs that are better suited for level 1s and 2s.
Sure.
In a West Fargo or a Fargo or Bismarck.
Scale is an important limitation for us in that regard. We don't have what we've done though is we have 2 schools identified at the elementary level for EL students. And mostly these are new Americans that come and register, and they're placed if they're at the elementary level, they're placed at Roosevelt or Washington. And so, we would have the opportunity to do some of that at the elementary level, and then they're only at one level at the middle school and at the high school. So I think there are some opportunities to do that, maybe not at the level that West Fargo or another larger district may do, but we do have those programs at 2 buildings, which would give us some capacity to do that.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? So we have a motion and a second for approval to post the English learner specialist position. Assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved, and hopefully posting this will start moving us in the right direction. So thank you, or a more expanded direction. Under B, approval of release from the 2024 to 2025 school year contract of Elizabeth Lucy. Is there a motion? Motion by Jason. Is there a second? Second by Steve. We have a motion and a second for approval of release from the 2024-25 school year contract for Elizabeth Lucy. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. C, approval to hire for the 2024 to 2025 school year upon a successful background check and receipt of licensure. Number 1, Angela Hansen. Number 2, Faith Justison. Is there a motion? Motion by Dan? Second by Diane. So we have a motion and a second for approval of the hire of the 2024 to 2025 school year upon a successful background check and receipt of licensure, Angela Hansen and Faith Justison. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. And thank you, Elizabeth, for your service, and welcome to the district, Angela and Faith. Number 6, policy and procedures. A, approval of amended policy of DDBA, DDBB, and GABAA, and first reading of DDBA-BR. Is there a motion? And you can include all of them in your motion if you like. Number 1 through 3. Is there motion by Dan? Second by Gail. So we have a motion, a second, approval of amended policies DDBA, DDBB, and GABAA, and first reading of DDBA-BR. And I'll read through them. Amended policy DDBA, vacation leave, with subsequent A, first reading of DDBA-BR, vacation accrual for ancillary employees. Number 2, amended policy DDBB, holidays. And number 3, amended policy GABAA, services for English learners. There's been a motion, a second, to approve these policies. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Number 7, nothing under tuition. 8, nothing under other. Items for future agenda. Does the board have any items for future agendas? Jamie?
Now that the school year is kind of wrapping up within the next couple months, or maybe even this summer, if we could hear from the dean of students of how they've really finished out the year, because I think that was such a great idea for a position and for our staff. I'd like to know if there's, how that's going.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll make a note of that. Any other items for future agenda? If you think of an item for a future agenda, just contact Dr. Luck or myself and we'll get it on agenda. Meetings to be scheduled. A, we have a school board meeting on Monday, May 6th at 5:15 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room in the middle school. A health committee meeting on Monday, May 20th, 2024 at 3:45 p.m. in the district office conference room. And I'm going to come back to these graduations here in a minute, but we have GED graduation on Tuesday, May 14th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the James Valley Career and Technology Center. D, transition house graduation Thursday, May 16th, 2024 at 11 a.m. E, school board meeting on Monday, May 20th at 5:15 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room. And F, JPS graduation Sunday, May 26, 2024 at 2:30 p.m. at the Civic Center. Now, going back to these graduations, Amy would appreciate a list of the graduations that you would like to attend. Right now, I have Gail down for the GED. Is there anyone else that, Diane? Okay. Anyone else? Okay. And then transition house graduation, I also have Gail listed for that. Is there anyone else that, Diane? All right, perfect. Anyone else? And Jason and Melissa. So, and then JPS graduation, right now I have Dan, Steve, myself. Is there any, if there's anyone else that you can check your schedules. And if you look over your schedules and if you're able to make some of these within the next couple of days, that way Amy can get the information out for the programs. I appreciate that. So, Diane.
Did we follow through on that idea of some of us sitting down in the audience and some of us being on the stage?
I don't think that's probably been discussed, but I think we'll maybe visit about
Okay.
that a little bit with Dr. Leck and
I don't want to
Amy
overcrowd the stage.
and yep,
Okay.
and the high
All right.
school principals. So
Okay.
yeah, thank you for the reminder of that, Diane. We'll follow up. Amy, if you want to make a note for that, we can follow up on that. So anything else? Anything else? Thank you, everyone. Monthly superintendent evaluation, section 1, goal and vision setting, and section 4, curriculum and student support services. There being no further business before the board, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.